Five Nights at Freddy's has been around for 10 years at this point, and there's been 13 games. Well, technically there's been 16, but we don't talk about those. So for all intents and purposes, there's been 13 games. Along with that is, oh my god, 44 books. Real quick, is this a video game franchise anymore? Because there are 3 times more books than there is games. And if you ever feel useless in life, just remember, the FNAF cookbook exists. We also have a mountain of crappy merch, 2 interviews, 1 movie, enough songs that even Sans is over there shaking his head, and a Markiplier playthrough and a pear tree. And it must have liked me, because I have been here since day 1, and I have played every single game. And because of that, and the fact I'm a white guy on the internet, I take it as my responsibility to share my opinion by ranking them. And now, here's a couple of ground rules. 1, I'm ranking these games on how much I enjoy them, not how scary they are, not how much others enjoy them. 2, this is only games that at least attempt to be scary. So no, Freddy in Space, FNAF World, and 5 Laps at Freddy's will not be included. And 3, this is my opinion, not yours. I do not need any of y'all breaking into my house at night because I have an opinion that you disagree with. Okay? Cool. Now, before the rest of you click off, let's go ahead, get into the ranking. Number 13 is FNAF AR. Yeah, I don't need to explain myself. This game is not only a terrible FNAF game, but a terrible mobile game in general. I would genuinely rather play Paper IO 2 than this. In FNAF AR, the animatronics have been shipped to your home and you must fend them off. It's an AR game kind of like Pokemon Go, but one of the main draws of Pokemon Go was the social and exercise part of it. But in this game, there is no multiplayer or anything of that nature, and you stay in one place the whole time. The animatronics just kind of like float there, and they don't blend into the environment, which I understand why that is, but at that point it just makes you wonder, why does the game exist? I'd probably get more of a scare out of you if I popped a PNG on the screen and played a loud noise. And also, this game... Ah? I got you, didn't I? No? Okay. Also, this game goes even lower by making useless reskins of the characters and making you pay real money for them. That's right. This game has microtransactions. You know what? I'm done. The game is shut down for a reason. Go watch the trailer with Markiplier in it. It is so much more enjoyable than the actual game is. FNAF 3 is so disappointing because the idea of this game is awesome. It feels like a final boss of FNAF. On paper, the game itself sucks. In FNAF 3, you work at Fazbear Frights, and a man in a bunny costume is coming for you. He may or may not be your dad. He also killed some kids in the 80s. Now, this game's atmosphere is awesome, and seeing this serial killer coming towards you, and the only thing you have to stop him from getting to your office is the laughter of this annoying little bitch, is a great idea. So you have great atmosphere and a great concept, so what's the problem? Well, in a FNAF game, you have this suspense building as the animatronics, or in this case, animatronic, makes its way towards you. And the way the suspense... Oh my lord. And the way the suspense is climaxed is by a jump scare. So if the jump scare is lackluster, instead of being scared, you're left underwhelmed. And this jump scare is the worst in the series, because he just kind of shuffles his way over to you. And I know a lot of people say there are lore reasons for this, but personally, I would rather take a scary jump scare over a lore accurate jump scare any day. And the gameplay isn't much better. It is super easy to keep Springtrap in a loop, and you can also counter most of the phantoms pretty easily by just not looking at them. The only thing that throws a wrench into this is the control panel. However, a lot of the time, it gives leniency on the ventilation and video. However, I will say the audio going offline can really screw you over in some cases. The lore is actually good in this game. It's a good ending to the series at the time, but I still don't think that redeems it in my eyes. Also, this is the most boring game in the series. I actively dreaded revisiting it for this video. So with all that, this is definitely probably my least favorite in the series, other than FNAF AR. Number 11 is Ultimate Custom Night. Okay, hear me out. I already see you getting ready to pull up, but let me explain. First, I like games that have a natural progression. This game is kind of like a do-it-yourself type deal. Also, this is not a horror game. There is absolutely nothing in this game that scared me. It might have startled me a couple of times at most. Quite honestly, this is the game I have the least to talk about in the entire franchise. The story is basically summed up in one word, and that is hell. It's supposed to be the nostalgia fest to everything that came before it, which it does a good job at, all things considered. And the fact that these mechanics can work together simultaneously is really impressive. It also has the hardest challenge in all of FNAF that has caused people to literally cry after beating it. So in those regards, it is good. But this is the FNAF game I have the least hours in, even though it's the biggest of the older games. So that should tell you exactly what I think of this game. Oh, also really quick, do you remember the joke I made earlier in this video about popping a PNG on the screen to scare you? No? Okay, anyway, well, in this game, it must have took some notes, because most of the jump scares in this game are literally just shaking PNGs. Moving on. Number 10 is Sister Location, and I personally thought people liked this game, but apparently not. I've been seeing a lot of hate for it online. In FNAF Sister Location, you play as Michael Afton as you explore an underground facility and meet Circus Baby and the rest of fun times. Now, getting the pauses out of the way, this game has the best jump scares in the entire series. And that's it, because this game is pretty much entirely scripted with only one or two minigames that have gameplay that's more than just hold down the button. Stop holding down the button. Hold down the button again. Oh, it's right in front of you. Hold down the button again. Are you tired of holding down that button? Well, that's too damn bad. Do it again. And that's the whole game. This game would probably be much higher if I played through it once, but I've played through it more than once. And now every section of the game is boring as hell. So this is a great narrative experience, but doesn't provide anything on repeat playthroughs. Let's go on to the next game. Actually, never mind. I have more, because Night 4 exists, and this is the worst section in any Five Nights at Freddy's game. It took me a total of 3 hours to beat the first time I tried it. You know what? Take everything I've said in this video back. This is the worst FNAF game. You know what? I'll take FNAF AR back. I'm so sorry for everything I said. Please come back. Number 9 is FNAF 2, and with this game there are two options. You either love it or you hate it. There isn't really a middle to it. So anyways, I'm in the middle of it. This is the point where the games at least get decent, and the good things in this game are actually pretty good, but the bad things are pretty bad. One, this game is where the lore pretty much started, and it adds a lot of intrigue and mystery. However, a lot of the lore in this game is explained later on in the series, but still, it's good. The idea of the game being a prequel to the first game was super neat. The gameplay is very chaotic. Trust me, we'll get to the gameplay later. Anyways, this game has some amazing camera renders that make even the not very threatening toy animatronics actually scary. And the withers are some of my favorite designs in the entire series. So far, I have been doing nothing but glazing this game, so why is it so low? Well, this game doesn't have my favorite gameplay out of the games. The withers are very unforgiving, and you have to put the mask on super quick after you drop the camera or you're done. And the music box makes it to where you don't get to see any of the amazing renders I was talking about earlier, because there's only one cam you need to use to beat the game, and this child locked in a box needs his music. Like, bro, what are you listening to? I still see your shadows in my room. Also, Foxy really likes you, and there was times where he would leave, which takes him forever to do, by the way, and 2 seconds later he was back at my office. So while this game has good lore, models, and secrets, I'm not the biggest fan of the gameplay, which puts it this low on the list. Security Breach is in 8th place, and in my mind this game has definitely gone up a few spots. I replayed it recently, and I very much enjoyed my time with it. This is probably my most played FNAF game, which is kind of funny to me. I think this game is a lot more fun whenever you stop treating it like a survival horror game and more like a funny ass sandbox game. Also, I know people will dog on this game on launch because of all the bugs, but quite honestly, I love seeing stuff like this. It is funny as all heck, so hey, I'm cool with it. Some of the sections in the game are genuinely kind of tense. Things like the Indo section and the Moon sections are kind of scary to me. And navigating around the animatronics and thinking out your movements can be fun and interesting. This game has great level design and animation. They are both like top tier in this game. Also, the Roxy section is the best part of the game. I like it's kind of freaky having this blind animatronic hunting you down while sobbing. It's genuinely kind of disturbing. I actually really enjoy the animatronics having personality. I think they kind of overdid it a bit. But one thing I do enjoy, actually, is Glamrock Chica's voice lines, because they feel very pre-programmed and robotic, and it's cool. Also, Monty's voice lines kind of give a similar vibe. However, I barely heard them in the game because I barely saw them. The runtime of this game is mainly just taken up by Glamrock Chica, Roxy, and Freddy. Speaking of Glamrock Freddy, I actually enjoy his inclusion, and having parts where you can't use him makes it to where you can't cheese the whole game with him. Also, the memes are so funny. Also, the wither designs of the Glamrock animatronics are actually pretty cool. Anyways, talking about characters that don't get enough screen time, where is Vanny? She was built up through all the marketing as this big bad of the game, but she must have left to get the milk because her human counterpart has more screen time than she does. Also, white woman jump scare. Vanny has a total of like 5 minutes of screen time, including her ending, which is treated like this huge event, but I've barely seen her throughout the game, so why should I care? Speaking of endings, the lore in this game sucks. And I'ma leave it at that because we could be here all day. Also, for every daycare and endoskeleton sequence, there's a mazer size. The staff bots are a cool idea, but why is there so many of them? I hate these things. Looking at all the cut content and the trailers, you could definitely tell this was a much different game, and Vanny would have actually been in the game in the original. So this is a fun sandbox game with a lot of potential at first, but all of it was lost because of overambition. Which, yeah, makes sense. This was Steerwolf's first ever non-VR game, and they tried to make a huge AAA game. Also, what's up with this map? Pizzeria Sim has 3 sections, and I enjoy 2 of them more than the other one. The salvage section is stressful as all hell because you must balance trying to not die with also trying to get your bag. And seeing these animatronics kind of slumped over in front of you is terrifying. And these models are they're great. They're shrouded in darkness and you have to hyperfixate on every detail, and if they move, you gotta... That isn't a taser. Well, you're supposed to tase them, and it causes them to go back to their original state. The money you make in this section, you use in the Tycoon section to customize your own pizzeria, which is a dope concept, and I hope they make a game fully focused on this one day. In this section, you have to buy animatronics, attractions, and things to traumatize the kids that are probably not very sanitary. You can actually play some of the attractions that you buy, which are not very safe. Jump, jump, jump. Oh, there's also mini games that you can buy, which are actually very interesting and are where a lot of the story of this game comes from. They're also the most fun mini games in the entire series. And some of the things you buy will actually make your office section harder. And this is the part of the game I'm meh on. It is scary, but in a very stressful way. I have no idea how this section works. I just kind of hope and pray I do the right things. And the jump scares are very disappointing. There is minimal animations in them, however, the sound is kind of fire, I'm not gonna lie. This game's ending, however, is what puts it this high up, because this is the best ending to any game in the series. In my opinion, Henry's monologue is amazing, and this feels definitive. And then they ruined it in Security Breach, but that's not this game's fault, so... This game has 2 really fun sections, and one I have no idea how it works. However, this game is an amazing ending to the franchise. FNAF 4 is the scariest game in the franchise. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to you, I pissed a little while playing it. This game has risen in my ranking a little bit because a year ago, this was actually lower on my list because at that point, I hadn't even played the game. I just watched Markiplier play it. But then I actually played it, and it was horrifying. In the other games, you are stationary and you can look around your office fairly quickly, meaning threats couldn't sneak up on you as easily. In this game, however, you have to run from one side of your room back to the middle to the other to get places, meaning it will take a minute to cover your whole room, while also having 4 things to worry about at one time. Staring down these dark hallways, quietly listening and knowing one wrong move and you're dead is horrifying. And the animatronics are also horrifying. However, I don't think I like them as much as the OGs or the Withers because they feel very over-designed, and this might sound stupid, but they try kind of too hard to be scary. However, they're still good. They are very good at being scary. The story in this game is heartbreaking, as every night you see the story of this child, and it climaxes in the realization that you have been playing as him the whole time. And at the end of the game, he passes away because of a freak accident, but is given the promise that he will be put back together. Quite honestly, hot take, I think this game has the best self-contained story of any of the games. I do have a few gripes with the game, however. One, this game is way too difficult until the final night, which is easier than the other nights because there's only one threat to deal with. So the difficulty curve spikes up and then spikes down really quickly. Also, come on, what's in the box? It's been, what, 6 years? No. It's been 8 years. Tell us. So yeah, this game is a great horror experience with a great story, and all of the games from this point on are great, including this one. I don't think it's as great as the games above it. FNAF Ruin is in 5th, and this game improves pretty much everything from Security Breach, which isn't very difficult, but still. This game is actually scary. The environment is incredible. It gives me vibes of those like abandoned theme park videos. It feels very abandoned, which no duh. There is so much detail put into every room of this place. And then you get the mask, which throws you straight into the world of frickin' Tron. And at this point, this is a natural progression in the world of FNAF. You have illusion discs, Fazgoo, and robot kids. Now, teleportation. It just kind of makes sense. The kid you play as in this one actually isn't super annoying. And unlike Gregor, we actually know why she's here. The characters are run down and disgusting. And Monty is actually in this one. The cameras are these like stations, which makes sense as there really isn't a need for them being on you at all times because this isn't an open world game anymore. It's more linear. But it still has some good and challenging sections. Actually, this game actively fixes a lot of the bad sections from Security Breach. The main gameplay loop is shutting down these security nodes, which I know a lot of people say is like repetitive and the same thing over and over, which, I mean, yeah, this and like every other FNAF game, except for the one that this is supposed to fix. Also, there's the story, which, I mean, it's better than Security Breach. The Mimic is a good antagonist for the series, but, I mean, I've said that before and nothing came of it. And it also confirmed the Princess Quest is the real ending of Security Breach. But the best part of the story, in my opinion, is Roxy. The fact it can make me feel anything for a freaking animatronic is wild. One last thing this game does amazingly is the feeling of hopelessness. In Security Breach, you have Freddy, the Faz Watch, the gun, the camera, and things of that nature. However, in this game, you have nothing. No allies, nothing to defend yourself, and most importantly, no Freddy. In the arms of the angel. So this game is an amazing DLC that fixes a lot of the problems from the original game. Also, I forgot to mention, this game is free. Help Wanted has actually gone down a bunch in my ranking. It used to be number 1, but after playing through it again and newer games being released, it has been dethroned. And I'm talking about the VR game here. The flat mode would be so much lower on the list, but this game just being a VR game makes it at least good. This game could be one of the scariest games in the franchise, or baby's first FNAF game, depending on how you play it. You start off with FNAF 1, which is pretty much impossible to mess up, and it's cool playing it in VR. It's a definite downgrade from the original, but it's still fun, and it is very stressful in VR. And then there's FNAF 2, which somehow, some way, is so much worse than the original. The original game was chaotic. Actually, that was one of the game's strong suits. But this version is so incredibly boring, because for most of the nights, they take out the withers. And whose idea was it to smear it all over Toy Freddy? And FNAF 3 is somehow even worse, because Springtrap is even more stupid in this than he was in the original. Yet somehow I still enjoyed it more than FNAF 3. And then there's Dark Rooms, which, I mean, first there's these 2 minigames, which are pretty much the same thing twice, but, I mean, they're okay. They are super easy to choose, however. But then there's the plush babies. I actually kind of like this minigame. It's a definite challenge, and it isn't as hard as some people make it out to be. But the hard mode, yeah, I don't kind of like this one. This is the absolute worst section in the entire game and belongs in the same place Mazer Size and FNAF 4 from Sister Location does. Funtime Foxy's little room is okay. So far there have been 3 pretty mediocre remakes of old games, except for FNAF 1. That one's actually pretty good. And a section of small, annoying minigames, and the plush babies. So, why is this game so high? Well, it's because of the next 3 sections. The parts and service minigames are actually really good, and it's actually pretty cool, and kind of horrifying getting all, like, close and personal with these animatronics. That sounded weird. The repair is by far the best section of the game, and it isn't even close. The animatronic choices, the claustrophobic nature, the scares, everything makes both of these games so good. And the only problem I have with either of them is that I wish there was more. Like, why is this the only section in the game that doesn't have 4 levels? There's Night Terrors, which all play like FNAF 4. Except for the one that doesn't. And, I mean, all 4 of them are pretty great. FNAF 4 has a great area for horrifying moments. And the only problem I have with any of these is that the Circus Baby one is a bit on the easier side. This game doesn't use any old models, which is a good thing for some and a horrible thing for others. The jump scares in this game also kind of suck. The lore in this game, however, is actually pretty good. I actually really like Glitch Trap in this game, and the idea of playing an in-universe VR game is actually really cool. This game is definitely aided by the VR, as I think it makes every game at least startling. Half of the game is not great, but the other half was some of the best the series had to offer at the time. Okay, real quick before we move on, as I was recording this, there were 2 things that I realized I missed in the script. 1, this has my second favorite ending in the entire series. It's genuinely haunting. It's really good. And 2, I completely forgot to mention the DLC, which it's good, but it really is just more of the main game. I mean, it is fun, but I don't think it would move the game up at all. So, yeah, my bad. Into the Pit is the newest FNAF game, and quite honestly, this might be recency bias just a bit. But I don't care. Starting off, this is probably some of the best pixel art I've seen in a game, period. Everything is so beautiful. Every asset is beautifully detailed. And it just looks so good. This town really gives vibes of a small abandoned town. This is probably also my favorite child protagonist in any FNAF game. He isn't annoying at all, actually. Most of the characters in this game are actually really good. The gameplay is especially really good, which I honestly did not expect looking at the trailers. The puzzles, especially the ones forcing you to go forwards and backwards in time, are really good, and the stealth gameplay works well. The minigames where you have to hide from Spring Bonnie are also really good. One thing that is kind of disappointing, however, is the jump scares. They just go by really fast. The pizzeria is designed amazingly, and I kind of expected it to be too small for the amount of time you spend in it, but not really. Each night introduces you to new places in the pizzeria that are genuinely meaningful. Spring Bonnie is a super menacing villain, and you feel his presence throughout the entire game. The other places in the town are good world building, however I wish they were a bit more fleshed out. Like, why is the library even here? The story is interesting and engaging the whole way through, which is surprising for a game that revolves around a time-traveling ball pit. Also, this game is brutal. In the beginning of the game, you see the missing children's incident on display. And they're just straight up dead kids. This is the wildest thing, like, gore-wise, we've probably ever seen in a Five Nights at Freddy's game. And I'm here for it. I would love if this was more the way that the series goes, but I honestly don't see a lot of people talking about that. Also, Spring Bonnie gets treated like that one dude from Tarzan. The 8-bit minigames are fire and the best in the series. The fact this game went from what was supposed to be a novelty game released on the Super Nintendo for some reason to one of the best games in the entire series is crazy. My only real complaint is the fact I wish some of the days were actually a bit longer, but other than that, I think Into the Pit is an incredible entry into the series and shows me that FNAF still has games to make and stories to tell. Number 2 is FNAF 1, and is this nostalgia? Definitely, but whatever. This game holds up incredibly well. The atmosphere is amazing. This feels like a real place and is probably the creepiest game in the series because of the uncanny valley feel of the place. This place feels like an actual restaurant, but there's just something a little bit off that makes it so eerie. The animatronics are horrifying because, one, the models are incredible and they all feed into that uncanny valley feel I was talking about earlier. In this game, it feels like you never really get rid of the animatronics, you just delay them from getting to you. And the fact that they never really get sent back to the stage when you close the door on them, they just kind of go to a random point on the map, really makes it feel like they're just roaming the pizzeria and happen to walk by your office. The cameras are just dark enough to where you don't get a clear look of the animatronics, which makes them feel more like predators hunting for you. It feels like they're hiding in some of the renders, and all the renders on the camera are incredible. The gameplay is simple in the best way possible, and this is definitely my favorite Office gameplay in the entire series. The later nights can be really snappy and quick, and all the mechanics work so well together. Things like having to search for Freddy on the cameras while keeping Foxy at bay and making sure Bonnie and Chica don't sneak up on you while also trying to keep your power in check, it all works together perfectly. The idea of the tutorial just being some dude checking in on you, going through the exact same thing you're going through right now is a great idea, and the fact that he gets 360 no-scoped in the middle of the game really shows the danger that you are in and is a really cool and surprising twist. The secrets like Golden Freddy and the rare screens are fire. This is the game that started out the series, and in my personal opinion, there is only one game that has beat it out so far. And with that, there's only one game left, and that game is, drumroll please, Hub 1 and 2 is incredible. I cannot sing its praises enough. It's so high above almost all of these games. It is wild. Everything is incredible. And honestly, I plan on making a full-length video just on this one day. Every single minigame is incredible. There are pretty much no stinkers in the entire package. cold storage, solos, parts, and servers from the original game so easily. The food service minigames are so replayable. I have genuinely probably played through each about 20 times, or even more. The helping minigames are the best way you could implement FNAF 6's office sections into VR. The Phaser Blast games, I have a gun. Why is he so big? They actually, somehow, make the sister locations minigames interesting. Making drinks that may or may not kill you, arts and crafts, doing makeup, shooting targets, bowling, playing inside an arcade game, and you get to beat the out of the plush babies, and the list goes on. The environments, especially the ones in the security breach themed levels, are incredible and had me saying, that's that one place from Security Breach, nearly the whole game. Actually, a lot of the games revolve around Security Breach, which works greatly in this game's favor. Security Breach has a lot of locations and characters that make amazing short VR experiences. Most of the games are stressful as hell, especially the Carousel, Funtime Freddy, and a couple other ones. And honestly, the hub world is so much more interesting in this one. I actually enjoyed looking for secrets, and you could teleport around the whole place, unlike the 2 places you could go in Help 1 and 1. A lot of the hard mode levels are ruin themed, which is genius and horrifying. And the fact it sets up a few of the things that happen in Ruin that we didn't have an explanation for then, and also the way that you unlock the hard mode, they're both absolutely genius. And the twist of just taking off the mask midway through the game and seeing a rundown version of the FNAF 6 Pizzeria might be one of my favorite twists in the entire series. One huge negative from Help 1 and 1 were the models, but in this game, the models look perfect. Every single one is beautiful, and honestly, some of these look better than they do in the game they originate from. Speaking of beautiful, this whole game just looks incredible, and the jump scares are also better than the original. Not perfect, some still feel a bit rushed, but some of them are actually really great. The story of this game is okay. I think it's definitely the weakest part. This game has better individual moments, like the baby giving you the ice cream, you giving Cassie the mask, and the princess quest reveal are great. But the actual story is definitely less interesting than Help Wanted, which is definitely kind of disappointing, as the first one had a genuinely solid story. This one doesn't have that. You play as a Fazbear trainee, but there's no antagonist to the whole game, as Glitchtrap and Vanny don't appear until the final cutscene. However, the story that is more in between the lines about Cassie's father is interesting, and honestly, I'm fine with this game not having a direct story, as the rest is just so strong. This is also just a great VR experience, definitely my favorite VR game of all time. Help 1 and 1 was a good FNAF VR game, but this is just incredible. This is my favorite FNAF game, and probably my top 10 video games of all time. And I enjoyed this game so much more than I expected. It's definitely the best game in the entire series. But really quick, where's Monty? And there we have it. Every FNAF game ranked. And wow, that was a lot. But honestly, it was a lot of fun looking back on all these. All of these games, not you, mean so much to me. And the fact this franchise has been around for 10 years now is wild. I think this series will definitely go down as my favorite video game series of all time. In the future, we have Secrets of the Mimic, which has a lot of potential, and 5 Laps at Freddy's, which I'll probably skip out on that one. But hey, the future looks bright, and I am excited to see what twists and turns the series has to offer in the future. Thank you so much for watching. This video took a lot of time, and I really enjoyed making it. Probably not going to do another one of these rankings till 2 or 3 games down the line, though. I will see y'all next video, whatever that is. Peace.